Your ego is the root of your suffering. I said it. Most of us doubt ourselves, seek validation, don't feel good enough, and all of this stems from the same thing. All of this stems from the ego. Now, in this video, I want to explain what the ego is, why I think the ego is the reason a lot of us suffer, and the last thing I want to talk about is how we can decrease ego-based suffering. Disclaimer, I know that not all suffering comes from the ego, because at the end of the day, a lot of people suffer for things not associated with ego, like war, poverty, illness, a bunch of other stuff, but a lot of suffering in the modern day world and a lot of suffering in the Western world. So what is the ego? And the ego is a person's self-esteem, it's their sense of self, it's their opinion of themselves. Now, your ego inherently isn't a bad thing. It's not a good thing either. It's neither. But when you become over-attached and over-identified with your ego, that's when it becomes a bad thing. And that is a problem in today's society. So many of us, without realizing it, are over-identified with our ego and over-attached to it. And that's why we have a lot of inner suffering, whether it's to do with depression, anxiety, or other mental health issues. What does over-attachment to your ego look like? Let's talk about it. Because this is where you'll realize you probably have an over-attachment to your ego, as most of us do. It looks like seeking validation, looking for the outside world to validate you, clinging to roles and identities, comparing yourselves to others. And most of us do this. This is so natural for us as humans, as what we know, comparing ourselves to others, whether it's how we think we're better than them, we think they're worse than them. This stems from your over-attachment to the ego. And fearing failure or rejection. And this is a lot of us. A lot of people avoid risk because we fear failure. We fear our ego to be damaged, for us to realize we're not as great as we thought we was. Ego thrives on comparison, yeah. A lot of people hear the word ego and they think it just means you have a big ego, you're a narcissist. It also thrives on comparison with people with lower self-esteem. Ego says, I'm better than, worse than, less than, more than. And like I said, whether your inner dialogue is, why is their life better than mine? Or why am I so much better than them? It stems from the same place, and we fall into the same trap. I want to go into different spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, and psychological beliefs about the ego. So we're going to start off with the one and only Buddhism. A lot of people that know Buddhism talks a lot about ego, and it teaches that attachment to your identity is the primary cause of suffering. So basically, they're saying suffering exists because of craving, and this means we suffer because we think we're incomplete. We think we need something to complete us, whether it's a job, a paycheck, a BBL, a girlfriend, a dream house. Most of us are reaching for goals or trying to find something that completes us, whether we know it or not. One thing about your ego is the more you get, the more you want. And this is so real. So many people have addictions to things like success, fame, money, plastic surgery. Next, I want to talk about Stoic philosophy. Now, everyone knows what Stoic is. Well, I don't know if you do, but Marcus Aurelius was a big pioneer of like the Stoicism. I wanted to say movement, but ideology. And they basically believe it's so similar to Buddhism. Stoics believe that attachment to external things like status, possessions, everything I've mentioned before lead to emotional turmoil. And funnily enough, these are the things that are hyper-focused in today's society. Like, think about how much plastered people hyper-focus on how perfect they look, or how much status they have, fame, like celebrity culture, how rich they are. Like, all of these things are so common in today's world, and that's why I think we are having a mental health crisis. That's why I think, especially in the Western world where we're technically so advanced, we should not be having this level of like mental health issues and problems. The reason for it is because we are over-attached with our egos. And when you realize it, you will realize how many problems of your own problems stem from your over-attachment to your ego and your self-worth, etc. Marcus Aurelius used to write daily meditations to himself to remind himself that he's just a man. He is not God, nowhere near, that he is not special. And I think today in today's society, and I'm guilty of this as well, a lot of us want to feel special. Not even today's society, in general, humans, we want to feel special, but that need to feel special is what charges our ego even more. Another thing Stoic philosophy does that I really like is it focuses on thinking of the greater good. Less I, less me, and more we. Another quote they said is, you are just a part of nature, fulfill your role. And I love that because I think it's probably important for us. I feel like community and interdependence has obviously got a lot more lost in like today's day. And I hate kind of making it seem like I'm only looking negatively, because obviously there's a lot of benefits of today, but the reason I'm doing this video is because I felt myself suffering at the hands of being over attached to my ego. So why not make a video? Because then I realized so many of us are, because when you break down what over attachment to the ego looks like, most people have that. Most people have fear of being judged. Most people are seeking validation. Most people don't like to be wrong. Most people don't like to apologize and be told what they're told. And that is, do you get it? Let's talk about the default mode network. This is when we're really going into the science of the ego, where it lives and how it works. The default mode network, which I'm just going to call the DMN, and studies show that the DMN is associated with depression and anxiety. So if that part of your brain is highly active, which means you're not focused on the outside world, you're daydreaming, you're mind wandering, that is highly associated with depression and anxiety, which makes sense, because to me, depression is you being sick of the role you're playing. Again, interchangeably, depends on situations, but for a lot of people that are depressed, and people be like, your life's perfect, why are you depressed? It's because they're tired of the role they've been playing, the ego, all the past things that have been associated with the person they're playing today. They're over-identified with that. And then anxiety, to me, is obviously, again, interchangeably, but it's fear of that idea you have of yourself, or the perception of yourself being perceived by other people in a negative way. That's why people have social anxiety, etc., because they're scared of how they're going to be perceived. Now, the final point, which I think is the most important point, we've spoken all about the ego. I don't want people to think the ego is bad. It's not bad. I will say it now, and I want a takeaway statement to be, your ego is not inherently good or bad, but your over-identification and attachment to your ego is what is eating you up. It's what's causing your depression, your anxiety, your body dysmorphia. In today's age, we're all so focused on how we're perceived that we don't realize that we are the perceivers to the experience around us. We are literally consciousness here to experience the world. And I'm saying this not to say I'm better than other people. I'm saying this to remind myself, as someone who has been too engrossed in her ego. So anyways, how you can reduce ego-driven suffering. The one main thing, and this is after me doing my research and looking online, mindfulness. And I feel like it's so funny. Mindfulness feels like it's the answer to everything. It feels like that's how you become more grateful, more happy, more peaceful. But it's true, and it makes sense, because mindfulness is us connecting with our inner consciousness and moving away from our mind and just focusing on being alive. But mindfulness practices have proved to reduce ego identification. As Eckhart Tolle says in his book, he says, realize deeply that the present moment is all you'll ever have. So mindfulness literally shifts your brain to be less focused on yourself and more present. Another thing meditation helps make easier, and another thing that's also good, is flow. Being engaged in the flow. Flow, whether you're playing tennis, you're at the gym, you're singing, you're dancing, being fully immersed into a moment where you lose yourself and you're not even thinking, that's a great way to get rid of ego. And again, all of this stuff stems from not thinking too much. The second point, well, it's kind of like the third point, but the second big main point, and when we talk about ego is your sense of self, and it's divided from other people. So community and compassion. And this is something Marcus Aurelius put forward very much, because he believed there's no I, it's only we. He believed in the interconnectedness of humans. And we suffer because we believe we're separate from others. So we feel isolated, we feel competitive, we feel defensive because we think it's you against me. We don't think in a unity mindset, because the ego thrives on separation. The ego says, I'm separate, I must protect myself, I must prove myself. But compassion says, your pain is my pain. We aren't that different. And there's a quote Gandhi said, which I love so much, and he said, to best find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And I think a lot of the reason, when you look at how to be happier online, when you study how to be happier, so much of it is to do with community, of helping other people. We focus too much on me. How can I make myself happy? And it's so funny because the answer's right in front of you, because you become happier when you help others. And that's what's beautiful. Kind of putting yourself to the side to help other people is the best way to dissolve your ego. So that is my video, basically talking about why I think the ego is a root for a lot of our suffering. Yeah.